All right, the Stotts-o-scope, that's right. Let's, put on the white lab jacket. Tell me, what are we talking about this week in the Stotts-o-scope, Jeff?
Well, the big news this weekend was Matt Forte getting injured and injuring his medial collateral ligaments. We're going to really focus on the MCL and what exactly it is. We've discussed it before. It's a ligament on the inside of the knee that helps stabilize lateral movement. And, for a guy like Forte that needs to cut side to side, it can be, a huge injury to have. If you look in this picture right here, you can see where the MCL is. It's on the inside of the knee. It comes in close proximity and actually has fibers that interconnect with the meniscus. And if, there is any associated meniscus damage, it can be a pretty limiting injury. Fortunately for Forte, it doesn't sound like there's any meniscus injury, but they are calling it a grade 2 MCL sprain. And so, the last guy that we talked about with an MCL in depth was right up the road in Jay Cutler. When he had it in the playoffs, and the best thing that I've always used is that old licorice model to understand what exactly is going on. So I'm going to bring it back. I've got a Twizzler pull and peel here, and you can see how it's one licorice strand made up of a bunch of smaller licorice strands, and that's exactly what a ligament is. It's made up of a bunch of individual fibers. And you can see it's healthy, so it's not got some give to it. It's pretty strong and durable. But if you have a grade 2 sprain, that means you got an incomplete tear, so a couple of those fibers tear. And you can see when I put a little bit of stress on that thing, it's weaker, it fans out. It's definitely not going to have the stability on side-to-side motion like it normally does. So for a guy like Forte that really relies on the ability to cut, if he tries to cut, that knee would give out. So moving forward, it's going to be interesting. They're saying 2 to 6 weeks. I really think it's likely going to be 4 to 6 weeks. And it'll be interesting to see if the Bears can sustain this pace and make the playoffs, and if they're going to get Cutler or Forte back.
How strange is it or common is it for it to be just the MCL and that's it?
Well, a lot of times when you do have an MCL injury, you have an associated ACL injury, and that was the big fear. The ACL and the PCL cross inside like that, and this being your ACL. And so one of those, when a side injury gets hurt, a lot of times you do have an associated ACL injury. But in Forte's case, they say there's no ACL involvement, which is extremely good. For a guy like Forte, who's a free agent to be, we're not talking long term. There is a little bit of cause for concern here because he had a similar injury in 2009, was able to play through it, and it lasted through the season, but ultimately needed to have the knee scoped and required offseason surgery. Here's the big debate now. If you're the Bears, do you reward him for waiting and get him that contract, or do you say, hey, you're injured, this is why we didn't want to do it? And that's going to be the big thing going into the offseason for Forte.